let's discuss Rakell's hot start a little bit here, because he had a tough year in the 2023-24 season. Scoreless in his first 17 games, had 4 assists, but again, that's not where you're expecting out of Rickard Rakell. He's a goal scorer. You're expecting him to light the lamp. He did it in the first 17 games of last season. Then he goes on the shelf with a shoulder injury, and you question, okay, was he scoreless because of the shoulder, or was the shoulder a result of him trying to overdo it because he was scoreless? Again, chicken and the egg situation. Regardless, he went on the shelf for a month plus. Then he obviously was dealing with those shoulder issues the remainder of the season. He finished with 15 goals, 39 points, which is his lowest point total since 2020 and the third lowest of his career. But goes away this summer, comes back in phenomenal shape, came back healthy, and came back with something to prove. And I think so far this season, he has proven to be the Penguins' best winger in the 2024-25 season. What are your thoughts on Rickard Rakell's hot start this year?
Definitely unexpected almost, considering the year he had last year, but he was dealing with an injury pretty much all of last season, it seemed like. I mean, not to forget the fact that this is a polar opposite of how he started last season. 20-some games without a goal last year.
Yeah.
Which that completely escaped me until just now. He needed to have the start he's having this year to get back into the good graces of quite a few people. And he's doing it, especially in comparison to what he did last year. This is exactly the kind of thing he needed. Again, he was playing injured for most of the year, but even then, it was playing injured after that slow start. So it's the fact that he's fully healthy and appears to be rolling at a pretty good clip. The Penguins couldn't ask for too much more from him.
I was going to say, that sounds like a lot. That sounds like Matt Nieto, right? I mean, he didn't come back and play with an injury last year. He was out because he had to have multiple knee surgeries. But I don't know. I've always had the thought process of, I don't know if I need to see Matt Nieto play for the Penguins again. But at the same time, who knows? Maybe he comes back and maybe he not looks like Rickard Rakell, but he looks like his best self, which is what Rickard Rakell looks like right now for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So again, minor aside there, but maybe we'll see. We'll see. Rakell, though, is leading the Penguins in goals currently with 6 on the season, third in points on the team with 8, only behind Sidney, Crosby, and Evgeni Malkin. And I hate that that's where this is where this conversation has to go. But based on where the Penguins are at in their organization as a whole, do you think Rickard Rakell, now that he has kind of bounced back and is showing that, hey, last year was an anomaly, last year was mainly due to the injury, and I'm back at 100% and I'm back operating at a full clip, do you think Rickard Rakell at some point this season becomes a serious trade candidate for the Penguins?
Absolutely, especially if the team doesn't turn things around and if it is getting to the point of once again being sellers at the deadline. I don't know how high he would rank on, players to watch in terms of a trade list, but if he's performing well, he's got 4 years left, and that's kind of where things get iffy. At $5 million, no less. It's still extremely possible, because if the team needs the help, needs the help right now, they'll be willing to do it. And depending on the team, maybe they'll be willing to take on the next 3 years of Rakell, or even flip him again, depending on how the next season turns out for whatever team. It is a big, long deal, but especially if the Penguins are willing to retain even a little bit, because they'll have the cap space, they'll have the room to do that sort of thing. For, again, it's long, but they'll have the room, and it won't matter if they're losing. It makes a ton of sense to see Rickard Rakell finally actually maybe hit the trade market this year, and maybe not even be the most important piece being traded out of Pittsburgh too.
Yeah, I think as of right now, if I'm looking at the pieces that could potentially become trade candidates, because I don't think that that's a conversation that starts until later in the season, as far as like serious consideration of, there's a trade block, there's, the Penguins are looking to trade somebody, unless it's a situation where Tristan Jarry has just been so bad, you have to ask, hey, does anybody want to take this guy? Because you need to figure something out. But as far as like Rickard Rakell is concerned, Marcus Pettersson is concerned, Lars Eller is concerned, I think those are the 3 that you look at and say, listen, if the Penguins continue to bottom out this year, and those 3 play at a decent clip, Pettersson's probably the one that has performed the worst of those 3. I think those are the top 3 that you say, hey, if there's a taker, and if that taker is offering something that we think is valuable in return, you'd have to imagine those conversations happen. Now, you mentioned he does have 3 years left at $5 million remaining on this contract. He does have an 8-team no trade list, and he is at the age of 31. So you think, maybe that 4th year, 5th year, 6th year of that contract is probably not going to be the best. But I will say there is something different about this than the Tristan Jarry trade. For one, Rickard Rakell is playing at a polar opposite level than what Tristan Jarry was playing at his position to start the season. So there's that. For two, he signed that contract 3 years ago at $5 million. That's much more palatable now and will be much more palatable in the coming years as the salary cap increases. And why is that the fact with Rakell and not really the fact with Tristan Jarry? Because how many forwards do you have and how many forward spots do you have to where if you have a $5 million goaltender, you can't really spend a lot of money on another goaltender regardless of how high the salary cap goes. Whereas if you have a $5 million forward, you can have 4 or 5 of them on a roster and still have it be palatable to your salary cap situation. I mean, look at the Penguins right now. They have Brian Rust ahead of them at 5.1. They have Crosby at 8.7. They have Malkin at 6.1. If I'm missing somebody on the forward side, I know Letang has 6.1. I know Karlsson obviously has that $10 million, but that $5 million becomes more palatable, especially if he's performing at the level that he has, and because of the fact that he has the track record that he's had. And now you can look back on last season and say, hey, a lot of that was probably due to the shoulder. Now, does that negate a lot of the return that you're going to get because that other team is taking on so much salary for so long? Yes, but I do think if he performs well, you could get a fairly decent return in exchange for Rickard Rakell. And part of that is, what's the market like whenever you start to try to shop him? And also, what is his performance like at that time? So what we could put a price tag on it right now, it'll be entirely different in January, February, and March.
It will be. And by the time that rolls around, maybe you'll start to see what teams might be interested. I mean, trades are starting. Utah and...
out of necessity, yeah.
Yeah, Utah needed a defenseman. Big shout out to 2-time Stanley Cup champion Olli Maatta. And the Leafs needed to send off Liljegren. He wasn't playing, so he needed to go somewhere. And the Shadow Realm it was. But when you look at some of the teams that might be able to even afford, you have to look at who's going to be able to afford a guy like Rickard Rakell. The Flames are off to a shocking start, and they could use another winger. There's a team right there. They can afford it and maybe could use, the extra punch of offense on the right side, especially if they hold on and continue a shocking good start to into the trade months. So once things start to fill out and filter out and see what teams need, what teams are looking for, there's some space to be had there. I think the Canadians are even looking for forwards. They're looking for grittier forwards, though.
Yeah, the Montreal Canadiens, like their Josh Andersons there. I believe Christian Fischer is up there or was up there at some point. They like that mold. And Rickard Rakell, not exactly the most physical of forwards, but hey, he has a rocket shot, and it's been working so far for the Penguins. 2 of those goals, by the way, coming on Tuesday. One of them was a redirection in front, and that's the thing. Some of it is his shot that is just absolutely crazy, whenever he can unwind that thing. And some of it's just getting to the front of the net, right? I mean, think back to the last time the Penguins won. I know it's been a while, but the last game the Penguins won, who scored with 43 seconds left right in the blue paint? It was Rickard Rakell. When they made it 4-3 on Tuesday, where was Rickard Rakell? In front of the net, redirecting a puck. So, he's getting to those dirty areas too, which is something that goal scorers need to do and something that I don't think he did enough of last year. It's nice to see him doing that, and it's nice to see Rakell scoring. Now, you'd hope and you'd wish that the Penguins can get right back on track and he becomes a very integral piece to a playoff team, but as of right now, the optics are not good around the Pittsburgh Penguins, like we mentioned off the top of the show. 31st in the National Hockey League right now, 6-game losing streak.